So, hey, what's good? I hope all's well. I hope you're doing well. So, I'm just going to jump into it. I have a couple things I'm working on tonight. I think I'm going to be working on at least one of the vids, and then I'm going to also, I think, work on one of my stores as well. But, I didn't want to really look at the video I just did, so I'm just going to reread some of the stuff I already read and just push on through. So, 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. So Sauron became thus almost supreme in Middle-earth. The elves held out in secret places not yet revealed. The last elf kingdom of Gil-galad is maintained precariously on the extreme west shores, where are the havens of the ships. Elrond, the half-elven son of Eärendil, maintains a kind of enchanted sanctuary at Imladris, in English Rivendell. On the extreme eastern margin of the western lands. But Sauron dominates all the multiplying the hordes of men. Yeah, the water's coming down. It's a little storm. But Sauron dominates all the multiplying hordes of men that have had no contact with the elves, and so indirectly with the true and unfallen Valar and gods. He rules a growing empire from the great dark tower of Barad-dûr in Mordor, near to the mountain of fire, wielding the One Ring. But to achieve this, he had been obliged to let a great part of his own inherent power, a frequent and very significant motive in myth and fairy story, pass into the One Ring. While he wore it, his power on earth was actually enhanced. But even if he did not wear it, that power existed and was in rapport with himself. He was not diminished, unless some others seized it and became possessed of it. If that happened, the new possessor could, is sufficiently strong and heroic by nature, challenge Sauron, become master of all that he had learned or done since the making of the One Ring, and so overthrow him and usurp his place. This was the essential weakness he had introduced into his situation in his effort, largely unsuccessful, to enslave the elves, and in his desire to establish a control over the minds and wills of his servants. There was another weakness. If the One Ring was actually annihilated, then its power would be dissolved. Sauron's own being would be diminished to vanishing point, and he would be reduced to a shadow, a mere memory of malicious will, but that he never contemplated nor feared. The ring was unbreakable by any smithcraft. The ring was unbreakable by any smithcraft less than his own. It was indissoluble in any fire, save the undying subterranean fire where it was made, and that was unapproachable in Mordor. Also, so great was the ring's power of lust that anyone who used it became mastered by it. It was beyond the strength of any will, even his own, to injure it, cast it away, or neglect it. So he saw it, and it was in any case on his finger. Thus, as the second age draws on, we have a great kingdom and evil theocracy, for Sauron is also the god of his slaves, growing up in Middle-earth. In the west, actually the northwest, is the only part clearly envisaged in these tales, lie the precarious refuges of the elves, while men in those parts remain more or less uncorrupted, if ignorant. The better and nobler sort of men are in fact the kind of those that had departed to Numenor, but remain in a simple Homeric state of patriarchal and tribal life. Meanwhile, Numenor has grown in wealth, wisdom, and glory under its lines of great kings of long life, directly descended from Elros, Arendil's son, brother of Elrond. The downfall of Numenor, the second fall of man, or man rehabilitated but still mortal, brings on the catastrophic end, not only of the Second Age, but of the Old World, the primeval world of legend, envisaged as flat and bounded. After which the Third Age began, a Twilight Age, a medium Avum, the first of the broken and changed world, the last of the lingering dominion of visible, fully incarnated elves, and the last also in which evil assumes a single dominant incarnate shape. The downfall is partly the result of an inner weakness in men, consequent, if you will, upon the first fall unrecorded in these tales, repented but not finally healed. Reward on earth is more dangerous for men than punishment. The fall is achieved by the cunning of Sauron and exploiting this weakness. Its central theme is inevitably, I think, in a story of men, a ban or prohibition. The Númenóreans dwell within far sight of the easternmost immortal land, Erisea, and as the only men to speak an Elvish tongue, learned in the days of their alliance, they are in constant communication with their ancient friends and allies, either in the bliss of Erisea or in the kingdom of Gil-galad on the shores of Middle-earth. They begin thus in appearance and even in the powers of mind hardly distinguishable from the elves, but they remain mortal even though rewarded by a triple or more than triple span of years. Their reward is their undoing or the means of their temptation. Their long life aids their achievements in art and wisdom, but breeds a possessive attitude to these things, and desire waits for more time for their enjoyment. Excuse me. Foreseeing this in part, the gods laid a ban on the Númenóreans from the beginning. They must never sail to the Erisea nor westward out of sight of their own land. In all other directions they could go as they would. They must not set foot on immortal lands, and so become enamored of an immortality within the world, which was against their law, the special doom or gift of Ilúvatar God, and which their nature could not in fact endure. There are three phases in their fall from grace. First, acquiescence, obedience that is free and willing, though without complete understanding. Then for long they obey unwillingly, murmuring more and more openly. Finally they rebel, and a rift appears between the king's men and rebels and the small minority of persecuted faithful. In the first stage, being men of peace, their courage is devoted to sea voyages. As descendants of Eärendil, they become the supreme mariners, and being barred from the west, they sail to the uttermost north and south and east. Mostly they come to the west shores of Middle-earth, where they aid the elves and men against Sauron and incur his undying hatred. In those days they would come against wild men as almost divine benefactors, bringing gifts of arts and knowledge and passing away again, leaving many legends behind of kings and gods out of the sunset. In the second stage, the days of pride and glory and grudging of the band, they begin to seek wealth rather than bliss. The desire to escape death produced the cult of the dead, and they lavished wealth and art on tombs and memorials. They now made settlements on the west shores, but these became rather strongholds and factories of the lords seeking wealth, and the Númenóreans became tax gatherers carrying off over the sea every more and more goods and their great ships. The Númenóreans began the forging of arms and engines. This phase ended, and the last began with the ascent of the throne by the 13th king of the line of Elros, Tarkalion the Golden, the most powerful and proud of all kings. When he learned that Sauron had taken the title of King of Kings and Lord of the world, he resolved to put down the pretender. He goes in strength and majesty to Middle-earth, and so vast is his armament, and so terrible are the Númenóreans in the day of their glory, that Sauron's servants will not face them. Sauron humbles himself, does homage to Tar-Calion, and is carried off to Númenor as hostage and prisoner. But there he swiftly rises by his cunning and knowledge from servant to chief counselor of the king, and seduces the king and most of the lords and people with his lies. He denies the existence of God, saying that the one is a mere invention of the jealous Valar of the West, the oracle of their own wishes. The chief of the gods is he that dwells in the void, who will conquer in the end, and in the void make endless realms for his servants. The ban is only a lying device of fear to restrain the kings of men from seizing everlasting life and rivaling the Valar. So, let's see. Yeah, let me just continue a little bit more. A new religion and worship of the dark with its temple under Sauron arises. The faithful are persecuted and sacrificed. The Númenórean carry their evil also to Middle-earth, and there become cruel and wicked lords of necromancy, slaying and tormenting men. And the old legends are overlaid with dark tales of horror. This does not happen, however, in the Northwest, for thither, because of the elves, only the faithful who remain elf friends will come. The chief haven of the good Númenóreans is near the mouth of the great river Anduin. Thence, the still beneficent influence of Númenor spreads up the river and along the coast as far north as the realm of Gil-galad, as a common speech grows up. But at last Sauron's plot comes to fulfillment. Tar-Calion feels old age and death approaching, and he listens to the last prompting of Sauron, and building the great of all armadas, he sets sail into the west, breaking the ban and going up with war to wrest from the gods everlasting life within the circles of the world. Faced by this rebellion of appalling folly and blasphemy, and also real peril, since the Númenóreans directed by Sauron could have wrought ruin in Valinor itself, the Valar laid down their delegated power and appealed to God, and received the power and permission to deal with the situation. The old world is broken in chains, a chasm is opened in the sea, and Tar-Calion and his armada is engulfed. Númenor itself on the edge of the rift topples and vanishes forever with all its glory in the abyss. Thereafter, there is no visible dwelling of the divine or immortal on earth. Valinor or paradise and even Erisea are removed, remaining only in the memory of the earth. Men may sail now west, if they will, as far as they may, and come no nearer to Valinor or the Blessed Realm, but return only into the east, and so back again. For the world is round and finite, and a circle inescapable, safe by death. Only the immortals, the lingering elves, may stay if they will, wearying of the circle of the world, take ship and find the straight way, and come to the ancient or true west and be at peace. So the end of the Second Age draws on in major catastrophe, but it is not yet quite concluded. From the cataclysm there are survivors. Elendil the Fair, chief of the faithful. His name means elf friend, and its sons is Isildur and Anarion. Elendil, a Noachian figure, who has held off from the rebellion and kept ships manned and furnished off the east coast of Númenor, flees before the overwhelming storm of the wrath of the west, and is borne high upon the towering waves that bring ruin to the west of the Middle-earth. He and his folk are cast away as exiles upon the shores. There they established the Númenórean kingdoms of Arnor in the north, close to the realm of Gil-galad, and Gondor about the mouths of Anduin further south. Sauron, being an immortal, hardly escapes the ruin of Númenor and returns to Mordor, where, after a while, he is strong enough to challenge the exiles of Númenor. The Second Age ends with the last alliance of elves and men, and the great siege of Mordor. It ends with the overthrow of Sauron and destruction of the second visible incarnation of evil, but at a cost, and with one disastrous mistake. Gil-galad and Elendil are slain in the act of slaying Sauron. Isildur, Elendil's son, cuts the ring from Sauron's hand, and his power departs, and his spirit flees into the shadows. But the evil begins to work. Isildur claims the ring as his own, as the were-guilt of his father, and refuses to cast it into the fire nearby. He marches away, but is drowned in the great river, and the ring is lost, passing out of all knowledge. But it is not unmade, and the dark tower built with its aid still stands, empty but not destroyed. So ends the Second Age with the coming of the Númenórean realms and the passing of the last kingship of the High Elves. So Ainu Lindale, the music of the Ainur. There was Eru, the one who in Arda is called Ilúvatar, and he made first the Ainur, the holy ones that were the offspring of his thought, and they were with him before aught else was made. And he spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but few together, while the rest hearkened. For each comprehended only that part of the mind of Ilúvatar from which he came. And in the understanding of their brethren, they grew but slowly. Yet ever as they listened, they came to deeper understanding and increased in unison and harmony. And with that, I'm going to stop. Thanks so much for watching. Later.